Om Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Om Ganana Antva Ganapati Gammavamahe Kavin Kavinam Upavashravas Jeshtarajam Brahmanan Brahmanaspata Anushrunnotabhisi Rasadanam. Om Mahaganadipataye Namaha. Om Keshvaya Namaha. Om Narayana Namaha. Madhvaya Namaha. Om Govindaya Namaha, Om Vishnave Namaha, Matsudharaya Namaha, Trivikramaya Namaha, Vamanaya Namaha, Sridharaya Namaha, Hrishikeshaya Namaha, Padmanabhaya Namaha, Damodaraya Namaha, Sankarsana, Vasudevaya Namaha, Pradyumnaya Namaha, Niruddhaya Namaha, Purushottamaya Namaha, Dokshaya Namaha, Narasimhaya Namaha, Achyutaya Namaha, Janardhaya Namaha, Upendraya Namaha, Hare Namaha, Sri Krishna Namaha, Hare Om. Dear friends, we came to the 16th chapter of the 11th canto of Mahabharata Puranam. In this 16th chapter, Lord Bhagavan Vibhutigana Varnane, that means opulence, his vibhutis. And then after the 16th chapter, the next chapter, 17th, Varnashrama Dharma. So we got Brahmana, Kshathriya, Shudra, Vysyas. Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, Chaturvarna. Dharmashrama, Varnashrama Dharma is going to be explained in the next chapter. In the 16th chapter, personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna describes his manifest opulences. That is Vibhuti Yoga. What we learn in the Bhagavad Gita is also Vibhuti Yoga there. Something similar to that is here. His specific potencies of knowledge, strength, and influence, and so on, described. Sri Uddhava offered glorification to Lord Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead and ultimate shelter of all holy places, saying, the Supreme Lord has no beginning and no end. He is the cause of birth, maintenance, and destruction of all living entities. He is the soul of all beings, and by secretly taking up residence within all living bodies, he sees everything. The conditioned souls, on the other hand, are bewildered by his external energy and thus are unable to see him. After offering such prayers at the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, Sri Uddhava revealed his desire to know about the Lord's various opulences in heaven, on earth, in hell, and in all directions. Lord Sri Krishna then described all these opulences, after which he commented that all power, beauty, fame, opulence, humility, clarity, charity, charam, good fortune, valor, tolerance, and wisdom, wherever there are manifest, are simply expansion of Brahma himself. Krishna says all these characters, what we mentioned, is a power, all power, beauty, fame, opulence, humility, charity, charmness, and good fortune, valor, and tolerance, and wisdom, wherever they are manifest, are all simply expansion of Lord Krishna himself. It therefore cannot be truthfully said that a material object actually possesses these opulences. Such conceptions are the results of mentally combining into two ideas to produce an object that exists only in the imagination, such as a sky flower. Material opulences are not substantially true, and therefore one should not become too involved in the meditating upon them. The pure devotees of the Supreme Lord utilize their intelligence to properly regulate the activities of their speech, mind, and vital force, and thus perfect their existence in Krishna consciousness. So the 16th chapter starts with the Uddhava Vacha. Uddhava says, Tvam Brahm Paramam Sakshat Anadyantapa Ma Pradham Sarveshamipa Bhavanam Tranastityopyayodhvavaha. Uddhava says, my dear Lord, you are beginningless and endless, the absolute truth himself, unlimited by anything else. You are the protector and life giver, the destruction and creation of all things that exist. Brahma means the greatest of all and the cause of everything. Uddhava here addresses the Lord as the Paramam or Supreme Brahma, because in his feature as Bhagavan, the Lord is the highest feature of the absolute truth and the shelter of unlimited spiritual opulences. Unlike those of ordinary living entities, the Lord's opulences cannot be restricted by time and thus the Lord is anadya antam, without beginning or end, and apavratam, unhindered by any superior equal potency. The opulence of the material world is also resting within the Lord Krishna, who alone can protect, maintain, create, and destroy the material world also. In this chapter, Sri Uddhava inquires from the Lord about his spiritual and material opulences in order to refine his appreciation of the Lord's position as the absolute truth. Even Lord Vishnu, the ultimate creator of the material world, is an expansion of Lord Krishna. Even the Lord Vishnu, the ultimate creator of the material world, is an expansion of Lord Krishna, and thus Sri Uddhava wishes to fully appreciate the unequal status of his personal friend. So some literature says Krishna is expansion of Vishnu and Vishnu is expansion of Krishna in some places. Both Vishnu and Krishna are the same person, and that's what we need to understand. Sri Uddhava wishes to fully appreciate the unequal status of his personal friend. My dear Lord, although it is difficult for the impious to understand that you are situated in all superior and inferior creations, those Brahmanas who are actual knowers of the Vedic conclusion worship you and the truth. The behavior of saintly persons is also to be taken as evidence, and therefore it is here stated that although ignorant, impious persons are bewildered before the Lord's all-pervading feature, those with purified, clear consciousness worship the Lord as He is. In this chapter, Sri Uddhava inquires about the Lord's opulences, and here the words Uchveshu Bhuteshu, within superior and inferior creations, clearly refer to the Lord's external opulences, those manifested in the material world. The saintly Brahmanas or Vaishnavas worship Lord Krishna within all things and yet recognize the variety in the Lord's creation. For example, worshipping the deity, the devotees will select the nicest flowers, fruits, and ornaments for decorating the transcendental form of the Lord Krishna. Similarly, although the Lord is present in the heart of every conditioned soul, the devotee will give more attention to a conditioned soul interested in the message of Lord Krishna. Although the Lord is everywhere, the devotees make distinction for the sake of Lord's service between his presence in superior Ucha and inferior Avisheshu creations. Please tell me, Uddhava is telling Krishna, please tell me of the perfections that great sages achieve by worshipping you with devotion. Also, kindly explain which of your different forms they worship. Sri Uddhava here inquires Lord Krishna about the spiritual opulences of the Lord, which consist of primarily of his Vishnu Tattva, expansions such as Vasudeva, Sankarshana, Pradyumna, Aniruddha. By worshipping different plenary expansions of the Lord, one achieves particular perfections, and Sri Uddhava wants to know about this. O my Lord, maintainer of all, although you are the super soul of the living entities, you remain hidden. Thus, being bewildered by you, the living entities cannot see you, although you are seeing them. The Lord exists as the super soul within everything. He also appears in various incarnations or sometimes empowers a devotee to act as an incarnation. All such forms of the Lord are unknown to the non-devotees. All such forms of the Lord are unknown to the devotees. The bewildered conditioned souls think that the supreme enjoyer, Sri Krishna, is actually meant to be enjoyed by them for their sense gratification. Praying to God for specific material benedictions and assuming God's recreation. Praying to God for specific material benedictions and assuming God's creation to be their personal property. The non-devotees cannot understand the actual form of the Lord. They therefore remain foolish and bewildered. Within the universe, everything is subject to creation, maintenance, and destruction. and thus the supersoul is the only actual controller in the material world. Unfortunately, when the supersoul appears in various incarnations to clarify his position, ignorant persons think that the supersoul is merely another creation of the modes of material nature. Unfortunately, when the supersoul appears in various incarnations to clarify his position, ignorant persons think that the supersoul is merely another creation of the modes of material nature. As stated in this verse, they cannot see that person who is actually seeing them and simply remain bewildered. O supremely potent Lord, please explain to me your innumerable potencies, which you manifest on the earth, in heaven, and in other places, and indeed in all directions. I offer my humble obeisances at your lotus feet, which are the shelter of all holy places. Uddhava here inquires about the Lord's material and spiritual potencies as manifested within our universe. He is asking so that all the people, all the devotees can understand what Krishna says. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna says, O best of those who know how to inquire on battlefield Kurukshetra, Arjuna, desiring to fight with his rivals, asked me the same question that you are now posing. Lord Krishna was pleased that his two friends, Arjuna and Uddhava, had posed the same question regarding the opulences of the personality of Godhead. Lord Krishna considered it wonderful what his two dear friends had asked exactly the same question. That's how Vibhuti Yoga comes in Bhagavad Gita, explaining the same Lord Krishna's opulences in Bhagavad Gita. And here in Bhagavata also, Uddhava is asking the same question. So it comes in Bhagavata also. On the battle of Kurukshetra, Arjuna thought that killing his relatives would be an abominable, irreligious activity, motivated only by his desire to acquire kingdom. He therefore desisted from the battle, thinking, I would be the killer of my relatives. They would be destroyed. Thus Arjuna was afflicted with the mundane consciousness. Lord Krishna here explains to Uddhava the circumstances in which Sri Arjuna posed his questions. At that time, I enlightened Arjuna, the tiger among men, with the logical arguments, and thus in the front of the battle, Arjuna addressed me with a question in the same way that you are now inquiring. So Uddhava asked the same question. My dear Uddhava, I am the super soul of all living entities, and therefore I am naturally their well-wisher and supreme controller, being the creator, maintainer, annihilator of all entities. I am not different from them. I am the ultimate goal of all those seeking progress, and I am time among those who exert control. I am the equilibrium of the modes of material nature, and I am natural virtue among the pious. Among things possessing qualities, I am the primary manifestations of nature, and among great things, I am the total material creation. Among subtle things, I am the spirit soul, and of things that are difficult to conquer, I am the mind. Among things possessing qualities, I am the primary manifestation of nature, and among the great things, I am the total material creation. Among subtle things, I am the spirit soul, and the things that are difficult to conquer, I am the mind. Among the Vedas, I am their original teacher, Lord Brahma, and of all mantras, I am the three letters Omkara. Among letters, I am the first letter A, and among the sacred mantras, I am the Gayatri mantra. So in Bhagavad Gita also he said, I am among all the mantras and the sacred mantras, I am Gayatri mantra and Omkara. He is repeating the same in Bhagavata also. Among the gods, I am Indra. Among the Vasus, I am Agni. The god of fire, I am the Vishnu among the sons of Aditi. I am the Rudras, I am Lord Shiva. Among the Rudras, I am Lord Shiva. So Lord Vishnu appeared among the sons of Aditi as Vamanadeva. Among saintly Brahmanas, I am Bhrigumuni. and I am Manu among saintly kings. I am Narada Muni among saintly gods, and I am Kamadhenu among cows. I am Lord Kapila among perfected beings, and Garuda among birds. I am Daksha among the progenitors of mankind. I am Aryama among the forefathers. My dear Uddhava, among the demonic sons of Diti, know me to be Prahalada Maharaj. Among the demonic sons of Diti, know me to be Prahalada Maharaj. The saintly lord of the Asuras, among the stars and herbs, I am their lord Chandra, the moon. Among Yakshas and Rakshasas, I am the lord of wealth Kubera. I am Airavata among the lordly elephants, and among aquatics I am Varuna, the lord of the seas. Among all things that heat and illuminate, I am the sun. And among the human beings, I am the king. Among horses, I am Uchashrava, and I am gold among the metals. I am Amaraja among those who suppress and punish and among serpents, I am Vasuki. O sinless Uddhava, among the best snakes, I am Anantadeva, and among those animals with sharp horns and teeth, I am the lion. Among the social orders, I am the fourth, or the renounced order of life, and among the occupational divisions, I am the first, the Brahmanas. Among sacred and flowing things, I am the only holy Ganga, and among steady bodies of water, I am the ocean. Among the weapons, I am the bow, and of the wielders of weapons, I am the Lord Shiva. And of the wielders of weapons, I am Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva used his bow completely covered with arrows, the three demonic cities built by Maya, Danava. Among residences, I am Mount Sumeru, and of impervious places, I am Himalayas. Among trees, I am the holy fig tree, and among plants, I am those that bear grains. I am the holy fig tree, and among the plants, I am that bears grains. Osadinam here indicates those plants that fructify once and then die. Among them, those that give grains which sustains human life represent Krishna. Without grains, it is possible to produce milk products, nor can one properly perform Vedic sacrifice without offerings of grains. Among priests, I am Vasishtha Muni, and among those highly situated in Vedic culture, I am Brihaspati. I am Kartikeya among the great military leaders, and among those advancing in superior ways of life, I am the great personality of Lord Brahma. Among sacrifices, I am study of the Vedas. Among the sacrifices, I am study of the Veda, and I am non-violence among those. Among all things that are purified, I am the wind, fire, and the sun, water, and speech. Among the 8 progressive states of yoga, that's Ashtanga Yoga, I am the final stage, Samadhi, in which the soul is completely separated from illusion. Among those desiring victory, I am prudent political counsel. And among the process of expert discrimination, I am the science of soul, by which one distinguishes spirit from the matter. Among all speculative philosophers, I am diversity of perception. The proliferation of innumerable philosophical speculations is due to differing modes of perception within the material world. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Sarvasya Chatam Hrudi, Sanyasisto Mata Smritir Jnanam Apohanam Cha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is situated in everyone's heart and awards a particular degree of knowledge or ignorance according to one's desire and merit. Thus, the Lord Himself is the basis of mundane process of philosophical recognition, for He creates differing and altering the modes of perception within the conditioned souls. It is to be understood that one can acquire perfect knowledge only by hearing directly from Lord Krishna and not by hearing from conditioned philosophers who imperfectly perceive the creation of the Lord through the screen of their personal desire. Among ladies, I am Shatarupa. Among the male personalities, I am her husband Swayambhumanu. I am Narayana among the sages and Sanat Kumar among Brahmanas. Among religious principles, I am renunciation, and of all types of security, I am consciousness of the eternal soul within. Of secrets, I am pleasant speech and silence, and among the sexual pairs, I am Brahma. One who realizes the eternal soul within no longer fears any material situation, thus is qualified to accept a renounced order of life, sannyasa. Certainly, fear is one of the great miseries of material life. Therefore, the gift of fearlessness is very valuable and represents the Lord Krishna. Fearlessness is a gift. It represents the Lord Krishna, both in ordinary present speech and silence. Very few confidential things are to be revealed. Lord Brahma is a prominent among sexual pairs because the original beautiful couple, Swayambhu Manu and Satarupa, emerged from Lord Brahma's body as explained in chapter 12 of the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Among the vigilant cycles of time, I am the year, and among seasons, I am spring. Among months, I am Margashira month, and among lunar house, I am the auspicious Abhijit. Among ages, among the ages, I am Satyuga, the age of truth, and among steady ages, I am Devala and Asita. Among those who have divided the Vedas, I am Krishna Dvaipayana Vedavyasa. And among learned scholars, I am Shukracharya, the knower of spiritual science. Among those entitled to the name Bhagavan, I am Vasudeva. And indeed, you, Uddhava, represent me among the devotees. I am human among the Krishna, among the Kim Purusha. I am Hanuman among the Kim Purusha, and I am Vidyadharas, I am Sudarshana. The Vedic literature states that one who possesses perfect knowledge of the creation and destruction of all entities and who is completely situated in omniscience is to be known as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan. Although many great personalities are sometimes called Bhagavan, ultimately, Bhagavan is the one supreme entity who possesses unlimited opulences. Bhagavan is the one source of supreme entity who possesses unlimited opulences. Among jewels, I am the ruby, and among the beautiful things, I am the lotus cup. Among all types of grass, I am the sacred kusha, and oblations, I am ghee, and other ingredients obtained from the cow. Panchagavya refers to 5 sacrificial ingredients obtained from the cow, namely the milk, ghee, yogurt, and dung and urine. The cow's urine is also valuable. It's in the part of Panchagavya and the dung. The cow is so valuable that even its dung and urine are antiseptic and fit for the sacrificial offering. Kusha grass is also used for religious occasions. Maharaja Parikshit constructed a sitting place from Kusha grass during the last week of his life. Among beautiful things, the lotus cup formed by the lotus petals represent the Lord Krishna. And among jewels of the ruby, which is similar to Lord Krishna's own Kaustubha gem, symbolizes the potency of the Lord. Among the enterprising, I am fortune, and among the cheaters, I am gambling. I am the forgiveness of the tolerant and the good qualities of those in the mode of goodness. Ojaha saha balavantam karmaham viddhi sattvatam sattvatam nama murti namadi murtinam para. Oh, the powerful of the powerful, I am bodily and mental strength, and I am the devotional activities of my devotees. My devotees worship me in the 9 different forms. Namavida Bhakti, it is called, among which I am the original and primary Vasudeva. Generally, the Vaishnavas worship the personality of Godhead as Vasudeva, Sankarshana, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, Narayana, Hayagreva, Varaha, Narsimha, and Brahma. It is understood that when a suitable living entity is not available to fill the post of Brahma, the Lord himself assumes the position. Therefore, Lord Brahma is mentioned in the list. Lord Brahma sometimes, Lord Vishnu sometimes appears as Indra and sometimes as Brahma. But it is Vishnu appearing as Brahma who is indicated in this connection. Shloka number 33. Vishwavasu purva chitte gandharva tvara sahamam budharanamaham stairyam gandhamatram maham bhuvaha. Among the Gandharvas, I am Vashwasu, and I am Purvachitti among the heavenly Apsaras. I am the steadiness of mountains and the fragrant of aroma of the earth. I am the sweet taste of water, and among the brilliant things I am the sun. I am the effulgence of the sun, moon, and stars, and I am the transcendental sound that vibrates in the sky. Among those dedicated to Brahminical culture, I am Bali Maharaja, the son of Virochana, and I am Arjuna among the heroes. Indeed, I am the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of all living entities. I am the functions of the 5 working senses. I am the functions of 5 working senses: the legs, the speech, the anus, hands, and 6 organs, as well as those of the 5 knowledge acquiring senses: touch, sight, taste, hearing, and smell. I am also the potency by which each of these senses experience its particular sense object. Karmendriya and Jananendriyas, Panchendriyas, Karmendriyas. The legs, speech, anus, hands, and 6 organs are the Karmendriyas, whereas touch, sight, taste, hearing, and smell is Panchendriyas, 5 Indriyas of our sensation. I am also the potency by which each of the senses experiences its particular sense object. I am form, taste, aroma, touch, and sound, false ego, the Mahatattva, earth, water, fire, air, and sky, the living entity, material nature, the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance, and the transcendental Lord. All these items, along with the knowledge of their individual symptoms and the steady convictions that results from this knowledge and represents me. As the Supreme Lord, I am the basis of living entity, of the modes of nature, and of the Mahatattva. Thus, I am everything, and nothing whatsoever can exist without me. As the Supreme Lord Krishna says, I am the basis of living entity, and of the modes of nature, and of the Mahatattva also. Thus, I am everything, and nothing whatsoever can exist without me. Without the manifestation of Mahatattva, a total material existence, and the Jiva, or living entity, nothing can exist within the material world. Everything we experience is a combination of the living entity and the matter, in its various subtle and gross categories. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the entire basis of the existence of both the living entity and matter. Nothing can possibly exist, even for a moment, without the mercy of the Supreme Lord. One should not foolishly conclude that the Lord is therefore material. As has been clearly explained in the canto of the Bhagavatam, both the living entity and the Supreme Lord are completely transcendental to material nature. The living entity, however, has the propensity to dream that he is material, whereas the Lord constantly remembers the transcendental position of both himself and a conditioned dreaming entity. As the Lord is transcendental, his abode is also far beyond the reach of the modes of nature. The actual purpose of life is to understand by mature conviction the transcendental Lord, his transcendental abode, our own transcendental position, and the process by which we may go back home, back to Godhead. Even though over a period of time I might count all the atoms of the universe, I could not count all my opulences which I manifest within innumerable universes. Lord Krishna says, over the period of time, he might count all the atoms of the universe, but he could not count all my opulences, which I manifest within innumerable universe. Lord here explains to Uddhava that should not expect a complete catalogue of the Lord opulences, since even the Lord himself finds it no limit to such opulences. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, Kalena indicates that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is within every atom and can therefore easily culture the total number of atoms. Whatever power, beauty, fame, opulence, humility, renunciation, mental pleasure, fortune, strength, tolerance, or spiritual knowledge there may be is simply an expansion of my opulences. Although the Lord stated in the previous verse that his opulences are innumerable, the Lord here gives a specific resume and demonstration of his opulences. I have briefly described to you all my spiritual opulences and also the extraordinary material features of my creation, which are perceived by the mind and defined in different ways according to circumstances. According to Sanskrit grammar and as confirmed by Srila Swami, the words etaha, etc., and etc. describe two distinct sets of the Lord's opulences. The Lord has described his opulent plenary expansions such as Vasudeva, Narayana, the Supersoul, etc. And further, the Lord has described the outstanding features of the material creation, which are also included among the glories of personality of Godhead. The plenary manifestations of the Lord, such as Vasudeva, Narayana, etc., are all eternal, unchanging, transcendental features of the Lord and are indicated by the term etaha. The extraordinary aspects of material creation, however, are circumstantial and dependent on individual perception, and they are therefore described here by the words manovikara, eviet eta vacha buddhyate. Srila Jiva Goswami explains that by consistent logical application of synonymous, eta refers to the Lord's eternal spiritual manifestation beyond the perception of the material senses. Therefore, control your speaking, subdue the mind, conquer the life air, regulate the senses, and through purified intelligence, bring your rational faculties under control. In this way, you will never again fall onto the path of material existence. Here, Lord Krishna says to Uddhava, control your speaking, subdue the mind, conquer the life air, that's pranayama, conquer the life air, regulate the senses, and through purified intelligence, bring your rational faculties under control. In this way, you will never again fall into the path of material existence. A transcendentalist who does not completely control his words and mind by superior intelligence will find that his spiritual vows, austerities, and charity flow away just as water flows out of the unbaked clays of pot. When a clay pot is properly baked, it holds any liquid substance without leakage. If a clay pot is not properly baked, however, water or any other liquid within it will seep out and by the law and could be lost. Similarly, the transcendentalist who does not control his speech and mind will find that his spiritual discipline and austerity gradually seep away and are lost. Dana or charity refers to work performed for the welfare of others. Those who are trying to give the highest charity by preaching Krishna consciousness should not engage in speaking cleverly for the satisfaction of beautiful women. Those who are trying to give the highest charity by perceiving Krishna consciousness should not engage in speaking cleverly for the satisfaction of beautiful women, nor should they attempt to become artificially intellectual. Providing dana and charity refers to the performed for the welfare of others. Those who are trying to give the highest charity by preaching Krishna consciousness should not engage in speaking cleverly for the satisfaction of beautiful women, nor should try attempt to become artificially intellectual simply for the sake of mundane academic prestige. One should not even think of intimate sexual relationships, nor should one dream of acquiring a prestigious position. Otherwise, one's determination to strictly practice Krishna consciousness will be lost. As described here, one must control the mind, senses, and speech by higher intelligence using the sattvika guna, so that one's life will be successful. Being surrendered to me, one should not control. Being surrendered to me, one should control the speech, mind, and life here. And then, through loving devotional intelligence, one will completely fulfill the mission of life. So, in this last line, Tasman manovacha pranan niyachenat parayanaha madbhakti yuktaya buddva tata parisamapyate. Being surrendered to me, Krishna says to Uddhava, being surrendered to me, one should control the speech, mind, and life here. And then, through loving devotional intelligence, one will completely fulfill the mission of life of surrendering to Lord Krishna. One can develop loving devotional intelligence by perfectly chanting the Brahma Gayatri mantra awarded at the moment of Brahmana initiation. One can develop loving devotional intelligence by perfectly chanting the Gayatri mantra, which is awarded at the moment of Brahmana initiation of Gayatri mantra in Upanayana time. By clear intelligence, one becomes naturally and spontaneously disinterested in the rewards offered by the mental speculation and fruitive activities and takes full shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus end the purports of the Thus end the purports of 11th canto, 16th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam entitled Lord Opulences. So now we are going to the next chapter, 17th, in which Lord Krishna description of the Varnashrama system. Previously, the Supreme Lord Krishna had assumed the form of Hamsa and glorified the duties of Brahmachari and Grahastha orders. In this present chapter, Lord Krishna further describes these matters to Uddhava. After Uddhava inquires from Sri Krishna about the duties of the social and religious orders of the Varnashrama society, the Lord replies that in the first stage, Satya Yuga, there was only one social order called Hamsa. In that age, men were automatically dedicated to pure devotion service from their very birth. And since everyone was perfect in all respects, the age was called Krita Yuga or a Satya Yuga. The Vedas were then manifest in the form of a sacred syllable Om, and the Supreme Lord was perceived within the mind in the form of the four-legged bull of religion. There were no formalized process of sacrifice and sinless people who were naturally inclined to austerity simply engaged in meditation on the personal form of the Lord. In the following age, Treta Yuga, there became manifest from the heart of the Supreme Personality of Godhead the three Vedas, and from them the three forms of sacrificial fire. At that time, the system of 4 varnas and 4 äçramas, which prescribes material and spiritual duties for the development of spiritual duties for the different members of the society, appeared from the bodily limbs of the Lord. According to how the social divisions took birth from higher and lower features of the Lord's body, they became endowed with higher and lower qualities. After this description, Lord Krishna explains the natures of persons in each of the 4 varnas and of those who are outside the limits of the varnas. He also describes those qualities that pertain to humanity in general. Members of the higher orders are qualified to accept second birth. Members of the higher orders are qualified to accept the second birth. That means Dvija. Born second time is when you got initiation of Brahma Gayatri in Upanayana time. That is the second birth. After receiving the sacred thread initiation, they should go to live in the Gurukula, the home of the spiritual master, Guru. With a pacified mind, the student Brahmachari should absorb himself in the study of Vedas. He should keep matted hair and is forbidden to wash his teeth, prepare a nice seat for himself, talk with the bathing or evacuating, cut his hair and nails or at any time past 7. He should keep matted hair and is forbidden to wash his teeth even. And he has to prepare a nice seat for himself to talk. When bathing or evacuating, cut his hair and nails at any time past 7. So they are all forbidden in the Gurukula time. That is in the ancient times. And when bathing or evacuating, cut his hair or nails, he must regularly perform worship at the 3 junctions of the whole day and must render devotional service to his spiritual master in the spirit, free from envy. So the disciples has to do 3 sandhyas. At the time of sunrise is 1 sandhya. At the time of the sun shining on the midday, that's Madhyanika, Prata Sandhya, Madhyanika Sandhya, and Sayam Sandhya. That is when the sun is about to close from the universe in the evening. That's called Sandhya, Sayam Sandhya. He accepts for his maintenance whatever remnants of the Lord is granted. He should render menial service to the spiritual master by massaging his feet and worshipping him, and he should avoid all sense gratification and strictly maintain the vow of celibacy. With this mind, body, and words, he should worship the Supreme Lord in the form of the Super Soul, in the way prescribed for him. For brahmacharis, seeing and touching women and conversation or sports in the company of women are absolutely forbidden. Cleanliness and ritual purification by water should be observed by members of all spiritual order society. Everyone is also advised to always remember that the Supreme Person of Godhead is the Supreme Soul dwelling within the hearts of all the people. After studying all the different aspects of Veda, a Brahmana who has material desires may take permission from a spiritual master and enter the family life. Otherwise, if he has no material sense desire, he may become Vanaprastha or a sannyasi. The proper order succession should be followed in changing from the spiritual order to the next. One who wishes to enter the household order, that is Grihastha Ashrama, and should accept a wife who is the same social class, who is not objectionable, and who is somewhat younger in age than he is. The obligatory duties of the three classes who are twice born, the Brahmana, Kshatriya, and Vaishya, are worship of the Lord, study of the Vedas, and giving charity. The occupational duties of accepting charity, teaching others, and performing sacrifice for others are the privilege of the Brahmanas alone. If a Brahmana considers that his consciousness contained by engaging in those occupations, he may sustain his existence by collecting grains from the fields. If he is disturbed by poverty, the Brahmana may, out of necessity, give after the business of Kshatriya and Vaishya, but he should never take the occupation of a Sudra. In a similar situation, Kshatriya may take the occupation of Vaishya and a Vaishya that of Shudra. But when the emergency has passed, it is not fitting to continue earning one's living by a lower occupation. A Brahmana who is properly fixed in his personal duty rejects all A Brahmana who is properly fixed in his personal duty rejects all insignificant material desires, always serves the Vaishnavas, and is under the protection of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna or Vishnu. The householder should study the Vedas every day and maintain his words with money honestly earned by his own occupation. As far as possible, he should execute worship of the Lord by ritual sacrifices, remaining unattached to material life and fixed in devotion to Supreme Lord. The householder may finally take the order of Vanaprastha so that he can fully involve himself in the Lord's worship. If he has a grown son, he may directly take the renounced order of sannyasa, but persons who are excessively lusty after women, who have no power of discrimination, and who are extremely attached to wealth and possessions, remain perpetually in anxiety over the welfare of their family members and are doomed to take their next birth in a lower species of life. Now, this chapter starts with the slokas Uddhavacha Yastamya Bihataha Purvam Dharmastudhar Kilakshanaha Varnashrama Charavatam Sarvesham Dipradamapi. Uddhava says, my dear Lord, previously you described the principles of devotional service that are to be practiced by followers of the Varnashrama system and even ordinary unregulated human beings. My dear lotus-eyed Lord, now please explain to me how all human beings can achieve loving service unto you by the execution of their prescribed duties of the Varnashrama Dharma. Lord Krishna has already explained the process of Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Ashtanga Yoga. Now Uddhava inquires how those inclined towards Karma Yoga can achieve the perfection of life, Krishna consciousness. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna describes that he is personally the creator of the Varnashrama system. Chaturvarnamaya Sushtaha Gunakarma Vibhagashaha. That is a line in the Purushokta comes. Varnashrama system. Chaturvarnam Maya Srishtam Gunakarma Vibhagashaha. That means I created Varnashrama Dharma. Therefore, the ultimate goal of the Varnashrama system is to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In other words, one should become a devotee of the Lord and learn the process of pure devotion service. The easiest method of achieving pure devotion service is by the association of other pure devotees, like the same thing of the Lord. If one submissively and faithfully associates with pure devotees, one can immediately achieve the perfection of life. A Krishna conscious person is not required to execute all the formalities of the Varnashrama system, because a Krishna conscious person absorbed in love of Godhead automatically gives up all sense gratification and mental speculation. Those human beings who do not follow the Varnashrama system are here referred to as Vipadam. The human beings who do not follow the Varnashrama system are here referred to as Dvipadam or two-legged. In other words, one who does not follow the religious path of life is known to be human only by the possession of two legs. Even ordinary animals and insects are eagerly engaged in eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. The human being, however, is distinguished from such a lower forms of life by his capacity to become religious and ultimately to love of God in pure Krishna consciousness. My dear Lord, O mighty armed one, previously in your form of Lord Hamsa, you spoke to Lord Brahma those religious principles that bring supreme happiness to the practitioner. My dear Madhava, now much time has passed, and that which you previously instructed will soon practically cease to exist. My subduer of the enemy. O my dear Lord Achyuta, there is no speaker, creator, and protector of supreme religious principles other than you, Lordship, either on the earth or even in the assembly of Lord Brahma, where the personified Vedas reside. Thus, my dear Lord Madhusudana, when you who are the very creator, protector, and speaker of spiritual knowledge, abandon the earth, who will again speak this lost knowledge? So if you go back to Vaikuntha, then who is going to speak this lost knowledge? This will go away again. This is what Uddhava was worried. Therefore, my Lord, since you are the knower of all religious principles, please describe to me the human beings who may execute the path of loving service to you, and how such service is to be rendered. Shukadeva Goswami said, Sri Uddhava, the best devotees thus inquired from the Lord. Hearing this question, the personality of the Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, was pleased and for the welfare of all conditioned souls spoke those religious principles that are eternal. Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna said to Uddhava, my dear Uddhava, your question is faithful to religious principles and thus give rise to the highest perfection in life. Pure devotional service for both ordinary human beings and the followers of the Varnashrama system. And you now please learn from me those supreme religious principles. In the beginning, in Satyayuga, there is only one social class called Hamsa, to which all human beings belong. In that age, all people are unalloyed devotees of the Lord from birth, and thus learned scholars call this first age is Satyayuga or Krita Yuga, or the age in which all religious duties are powerfully fulfilled. It is understood from this verse that the supreme personal religious principle is unalloyed surrender to supreme personality of Godhead. It is understood from this verse that the supreme religious principle is unalloyed surrender to supreme personal Godhead. In Satyayuga, there is no influence of the lower modes of nature. Therefore, all human beings belong to the highest social order called Hamsa, in which one comes under the direct supervision of the personality of Godhead. In the modern age, people are crying out for social equality, but unless all human beings are situated in the mode of goodness, which is the position of purity and unalloyed devotion, social equality is not possible. As the lower modes of nature become prominent, secondary religious principles rise, by which people may be gradually elevated to the pure stage of unalloyed surrender to God. In Satyayuga, there are no inferior human beings, and thus there is no need of secondary religious principles. Everyone directly takes to the unalloyed service of the Lord, fulfilling perfectly all religious obligations. In Sanskrit, one who perfectly executes all duties is called Krita Kriya. Krit Kriya, as mentioned in this verse. Therefore, Satyayuga is called Krit Yuga, or the age of perfect religious action. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, the word Adau in the beginning refers to the moment of universal creation. In other words, the Varnashrama Dharma system is not a recent concoction but naturally arises at the time of creation and should therefore be accepted by all intelligent human beings. This text 11 says, Vedaha pranava evagre dharmoham vrisharupadrika upasate tapo nishta hamsamma mukti kilbishaha. In Satyayuga, the undivided Veda is expressed by the syllable Om, and I am the only object of mental activities. I became manifest as four-legged bull of religion, and thus the inhabitants of Satyayuga, fixed in austerity and free from all sins, worship me as Lord Hamsa. The bull of a religion is described in Srimad Bhagavatam, Tapaha, Sucham, Daya, Satyam, Iti, Pada, Krit, Kritaha. In the age of Satyayuga, truthfulness, your four legs were established by the four principles of austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. Sri Vyasa Maharshi divided the one Veda into four: Rigveda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, Atharvana Vedas at the end of the Dwapara Yuga. But in Satyayuga, the whole of Vedic knowledge is easily understood by everyone simply by vibrating the syllable Om. In this age, there are no ritualistic or pious activities such as sacrifice, since everyone is sinless, austere, and fully engaged in worshipping the personality of Godhead, Lord Hamsa, through the process of meditation. O greatly fortunate one, at the beginning of Treta Yuga, Vedic knowledge appeared from my heart, which is the abode of air of life, in three divisions: Rigveda, Samaveda, and Yajurveda. Then from that knowledge appeared as threefold sacrifice. In Treta Yuga, the bull of religion loses one leg, and only 75% of the religious principles are manifested, represented by the three principal Vedas, Rigveda, Samaveda, Yajurveda. The Lord appears in the process of threefold Vedic sacrifice. The three divisions are understood as follows. The Hota priest offers oblations into the fire and chants the Rigveda. The Udgata priest chants the Samaveda. And the Adurva priest, who arranges the sacrificial ground, altar, etc., chants the Yajurveda. The Treta Yuga, such sacrifice is the authorized process of spiritual perfection. The word pranat in this verse refers to the universal form of personality of Godhead. This form is further described in the following verse. In Treta Yuga, the four social order were manifested from the universal form of personality of Godhead. The Brahmanas appeared from the Lord's face, and the Kshatriyas from the Lord's upper arms, and the Vysyas from the Lord's thighs, and the Sudras from the legs and the feet, the mighty form. Each social division has recognized by its particular duties and behavior. In Treta Yuga, the four social orders were manifested from the universal form of the personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna or Vishnu. The Brahmanas appear from the Lord's face, the Kshatriyas appear from the Bahu, upper arms, the Vysyas from the Lord's thighs, and the Sudras from the legs and the Padas, that mighty form, which each social division has recognized by its particular duties and behavior. The married order of life appear from the lions. The married order of life appear from lions of my universal form, and the celibate students came from my heart. The forest-dwelling retired order of life appeared from my chest, and the renounced order of life was situated within the head of my universal form. There are two classes of brahmachari life. Naistika brahmachari remains celibate throughout life, whereas the upakarmana brahmachari marries upon finishing his student life. One who remains perpetually celibate is situated within the heart of Lord Krishna. But those brahmacharis who eventually one who remains perpetually celibate is situated in the heart of Lord Krishna. But those brahmacharis who eventually marry are initiated within the loins of the universal form of Lord. The word Vane Vasha refers to Vanaprastha, or retired order of life, which is situated on the chest of the Lord. The various occupational and social divisions of human society appeared according to inferior and superior natures manifest in the situation of the individual birth. According to the Brahmanas and Sannyasis being situated on the head of the universal form of the Lord are considered to be the most qualified, whereas the Sudras and Grihasthas are being on leg and thighs, the personality of Godhead, are considered to be in the lowest portion. A living entity is born with a certain amount of intelligence and beauty and social opportunity, and is therefore situated in a particular occupational and social position within the Varnashrama system. Ultimately, such positions are external designations, but since the majority of the human beings are conditioned by the external energy and a Lord, they should act according to the scientific Varnashrama divisions until they reach the stage of Jivan Mukta, or liberated life. Peacefulness, self-control, austerity, cleanliness, satisfaction, tolerance, simple straightforwardness, devotion to me, mercy, and truthfulness are the natural qualities of the Brahmanas. The Brahmanas are self-control, peaceful, austerity, cleanliness, satisfaction, and tolerance, simple straightforwardness, devotion to Lord Krishna, mercy, and truthfulness are the natural qualities of the Brahmanas. Dynamic power, bodily strength, determination, heroism, tolerance, generosity, great endeavor, steadiness, devotion to the Brahmanas, and leadership are the natural qualities of Kshatriyas. Kshatriyas are dynamic power, bodily strength, determination, heroism, tolerance, generosity. They're all known for this. Are Kshatriyas. Faith in the Vedic civilization, dedication to charity, freedom from hypocrisy, service to the Brahmanas, and perpetually desiring to accumulate more money are the natural qualities of the Vysyas. Vysyas have got a full faith in the Vedic civilization, dedication to charity, from hypocrisy, service to the Lord, from faith in the Vedic civilization, dedication to charity, freedom from hypocrisy, service to the Brahmanas, and perpetually desiring to accumulate more money for the good cause of the society are the natural qualities of the Vysyas. So he is telling the Brahmana, Kshatriya, and Vysyas characteristics. Service without duplicity to the Brahmanas, cows, and gods, and other worshipable personalities, and complete satisfaction with whatever income is obtained in such service are the natural qualities of Shudras. When the entire social order is functioning properly according to the Vedic standards, everyone is happy and satisfied. Although the Shudras are to be satisfied with whatever income they obtain through their service, they never lack the necessities of life, because the other order societies such as Kshatriyas and Vysyas are required to be abundantly generous, and the Brahmanas are well known for being the most merciful of all. Therefore, if all the social classes or other obey the Vedic injunctions, then there will be a new and blissful for the entire human society under the guidance of Krishna consciousness. So in Satya Yuga, only one order of life. In Treta Yuga onwards, the four Varnashrama came: Brahmana, Kshatriya, and Vaishya, and Shudra. So he has described the characteristic of all the four Chaturvarna: dirtiness, dishonesty, thief, faithlessness, useless quarrel, lust, anger, and hankering constitute the nature of those in the lowest position outside the Varnashrama system. Service without duplicity to the Brahmanas, cows, and gods and other worshipable personalities, and complete satisfaction with whatever income is obtained in such service to other three higher order are the natural qualities of Shudras. The people who are lower than Shudras, dirtiness, dishonesty, thievery, faithlessness, useless quarrel, lust, anger, and hankering outside the nature of those in the lowest position outside the Varnashrama Dharma. Here the Lord describes those who reside outside the scientific social system called Varnashrama Dharma. In Europe and America, we have particularly observed that the standards of cleanliness are abominable even among so-called educated persons. Going without bathing, the use of indecent language for common. In the West, in the modern age, people whimsically speak whatever they like, dispensing with all authority, and there is therefore very little truthfulness and true wisdom. Similarly, in both the capitalistic and communistic countries, everyone is busily engaged in stealing and robbing from everyone else in the same business, taxation and outright crime. People are not considered of the kingdom of God nor of their own eternal nature, and thus their faith is very weak. Moreover, since modern human beings are not very interested in Krishna consciousness, they constantly quarrel, bicker, and fight over completely insignificant matters. Relating to the material body. Thus, at the slightest provocation, there are huge wars and massacres. Lust, anger, and hankering have become practically unlimited in Kali Yuga. Lust, anger, and hankering have become practically unlimited in Kali Yuga. The symptoms and characteristics of mentioned here can be abundantly observed throughout the world in this Kali Yuga. Wherever people have fallen away from the Varnashrama system because of sinful habits such as animal killing, illicit sex, intoxication, and gambling, the great majority of human beings have become chandalas and untouchables. Never non-violence, truthfulness, honesty, desire for the happiness and welfare of all others, and freedom from lust, anger, and greed constitute duties of all members of the society. So Lord Krishna says, all the members of the society, non-violence, truthfulness, honesty, desire for the happiness and welfare of all others, and freedom from lust, anger, and greed constitute duties of all members of society. The word Sarva Varnika indicates that the above mentioned principles constitute general piety which should be observed by all members of the society, even those outside the Varnashrama system. We practically find that even in societies that have fallen away from the Varnashrama system, the above mentioned principles are honored and engaged. Such principles are not constituted. Such principles do not constitute a specific path of liberation, but are parental virtues in human society. The twice born member of the society, that is Brahmana and Kshatriya and Shudra, who had Upanayana ceremony, then they are called Vija, that is twice born. They are born, the second mother is Gayatri Mata, and that is initiation, Gayatri Upanayana program. The twice born member of the society is Brahmana, Kshatriya and Shudra, Brahmana, Vysyas and Kshatriyas, achieve second birth through the sequence of purificatory ceremonies, culminating in Gayatri initiation. Being summoned by the spiritual master, he should reside within the Guru's ashrama and with self-controlled mind carefully study the Vedic literature. The term Dvija or twice born here indicates the three superior classes, namely Brahmana, Kshatriya and Vaishya, who all receive the Gayatri mantra, which signifies their second birth through spiritual intoxication. One is the first birth is biological or seminal and does not necessarily indicate that one is intelligent and enlightened. A young Brahmana boy, if qualified, may be initiated with Gayatri Mantra at the age of 12, and Kshatriyas and Vaisyas a few years later. In order to become enlightened with the spiritual knowledge, the boy resides within the Gurukula or ashrama of the spiritual master. The International Society of Krishna Consciousness has established similar Gurukulas all over the world and is issuing a great call to civilized human beings to arrange for the proper education of their children. Every young boy and girl should learn to be self-controlled and should become enlightened through study of authorized Vedic literatures. In this way, unlike ordinary animals, insects, fish, birds, etc., an enlightened human being may take birth twice and thus become a perfect in the knowledge, and that leads to ultimate liberation. The word anuparvayat in this verse indicates that the system of samskaras or purificatory rituals, beginning with garbhadana samskara or the purification of the sexual act, generally Shudras and those who do not follow the Vedic system are not attracted to such purificatory ceremonies. Therefore, they remain ignorant of spiritual life and envious of bona fide spiritual master. Those whose character has been civilized by a systematic cleansing process give up the tendency to be accumulative, to argumentative and whimsical, and instead become submissive and eager to learn in the presence of bona fide spiritual master. In the presence of Guru, you have to learn Veda. The brahmachari should regularly dress with a belt of straw and a deerskin garments. He should wear matted hair, carry a rod and water pot, and he decorated with aksha beads and sacred thread. Carrying pure kusha grass in his hand, he should never accept a luxury or a sensuous sitting place. He should not unnecessarily polish his teeth, nor should be bleach and iron his clothes. The word adbhuta dadavasa indicates that the renounced brahmachari is not concerned with a glistening smile to attract the opposite sex, nor does he pay much attention to his outer garments. Brahmachari life is meant for austerity and obedience to the spiritual master. So far later in the life, when one becomes a businessman, politician, or intellectual Brahmana, one will be able to call upon resources of character, discipline, self-control, austerity, and humility. Student life, as described here, is far different from the mindless hedonism known as modern education. Of course, in the modern age, Krishna conscious brahmacharis cannot artificially adopt the ancient dress and ritualistic duties described here, but the essential values of self-control, purity, sorry about this. The word Adhavuta Dadavasa indicates that a renounced brahmachari is not concerned with a glistening smile to attract the opposite sex, nor does he pay much attention to his outer garments. Brahmachari life is meant for austerity and obedience to the spiritual master, the Guru, so that later in the life, when one becomes businessman, politician, intellectual Brahmana, one will be able to call upon the sources of character, discipline, self-control, austerity, and humility. Student life is described here is far different from the mindless hedonism known as modern education. Of course, in the modern age, Krishna conscious brahmacharis cannot artificially adopt the ancient dress and ritualistic duties described here, but the essential values of self-control, purity, obedience to bona fide spiritual master are just as necessary today as they were in Vedic times. A brahmachari should always remain silent while bathing, eating, attending sacrificial performances, chanting japa, or passing stool and urine. Always remain silent while bathing, eating, attending sacrificial performances, chanting japa, or passing stool or urine. He should not cut his nails and hair, including the armpit and pubic hair. This is the old Varnashrama Dharma rules. Narada Muni gives similar technical description of Vedic brahmachari life in Canto 7, Chapter 12 of Srimad Bhagavatam. One observing the vow of celibate brahmachari life should never pass semen. If the semen by chance spills out by itself, the brahmachari should immediately take bath in the water, control his breath by pranayama, and chant the Gayatri mantra. Purified and fixed in consciousness, the brahmachari should worship the fire god, sun, acharya, cows, brahmanas, guru, elderly, respectable persons, and gods. He should perform such worship at sunrise and sunset without speaking, but by silently chanting or murmuring the appropriate mantras of Gayatri mantra, both before sunset and soon before sunrise. Acharya. One should know that Acharya as myself and never disrespect him in any way. One should not envy him, thinking him an ordinary man, for he is the representative of all gods. The verse appears in Chaitanya Charitamrita. His divine grace, Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Ashtottara Shata Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada has commented on this verse as follows. This is a verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam spoken by Lord Sri Krishna when he was questioned by Uddhava regarding the four social spiritual order of society. He was specifically instructing how a brahmachari should behave under the care of the spiritual master. A spiritual master is not an enjoyer of facilities offered by his disciples. He is like a parent. Without this attentive service of his parents, a child cannot grow to manhood. Similarly, without the care of the spiritual master, one cannot rise to the plane of transcendental service. The spiritual master is also called Acharya, or a transcendental professor of spiritual science. Manu Samhita explains the duties of an Acharya, describing that a bona fide spiritual master accepts a charge of disciples, teaches them the Vedic knowledge with all its intricacies, and gives them their second birth. The ceremony performed to initiate a disciple into the study of spiritual science is called Upaniti, or the function that brings one nearer to the spiritual master. One who cannot be brought nearer to a spiritual master cannot have a sacred thread, and thus he is indicated to be Shudra. The sacred thread worn on the body of Brahmana, Kshathriya, and Vaishya is a symbol of initiation by the spiritual master. It is worth noting, if worn merely to boast of high parentage, the duty of the spiritual master is to initiate a disciple with a sacred thread ceremony, and after this samskara or purificatory process, the spiritual master actually begins to teach the disciple about the Vedas. A person born a Shudra is not barred from such spiritual initiation, provided he is approved by the spiritual master, who is duty authorized to award a disciple the right to be a Brahmana. If he finds him perfectly qualified in the Vayu Purana, an Acharya is defined as one who knows the import of all the Vedic literatures, abides by their rules and regulations, and teaches his disciple to act in the same way. Only out of his immense compassion does the personality of Godhead reveal himself as the spiritual master. Therefore, in the dealings of an Acharya, there is no activities but those of transcendental loving service to the Lord. He is the supreme personality of Sarveta Godhead. It is worthwhile to take shelter of such steady devotee, who is called Ashraya Vigraha, or the manifestation of form of Lord, of whom one must take shelter. If one posts himself as an Acharya but does not have an attitude of servitorship to the Lord, he must be considered an offender, and this offense attitude disqualifies him from being an Acharya. The bona fide spiritual master always engages in unalloyed devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. By this test, he is known to be direct manifestation of Lord and genuine representative of Lord Sri Nityananda Prabhu. Such a spiritual master is known as Acharya Deva, influenced by an envious temperament and dissatisfied because of an attitude of sense gratification. Mundanes criticizes a real Acharya. In fact, however, a bona fide Acharya is a non-different from the personality of Godhead. Therefore, to envy such an Acharya is to envy the personality of Godhead, Krishna himself. This will produce an effect submersive and transcendental relationship. In the morning and evening, one should collect foodstuffs and other articles and deliver them to the spiritual master. Then, being self-controlled, one should accept for oneself that which is allotted by the Acharya. One who desires to receive the mercy of a bona fide spiritual master should not be eager to accumulate the paraphernalia of sense gratification. Rather, whatever one is able to collect, one should offer at the lotus feet of the Acharya, being self-controlled. One should humbly accept that which is allotted by the bona fide spiritual master. Every living entity must ultimately be trained to serve the Supreme Person of Godhead, but until one has become expert in the techniques of spiritual service, one should offer everything to the spiritual master. While engaged in serving the spiritual master, one should remain as a humble servant. And thus, when the Guru is walking, the servant should humbly walk behind. When the Guru lies down to sleep, the servant should also lie down nearby. And when the Guru has awakened, the servant should sit nearby him, massaging his lotus feet and rendering other similar services. When the Guru is sitting down on his asana, the servant should stand nearby, the folded hands, awaiting the Guru's order. In this way, one should always worship the spiritual master. Until the student has completed his Vedic education, he should remain engaged in the ashrama of the spiritual master. should remain completely free from material sense gratification and should not break his vow of celibacy of brahmacharya. This verse describes the Upakurvana brahmachari who enters the grihastha ashrama or family life after completing his Vedic education. The word evam vrita indicates that although one may eventually marry and become prominent in society as an intellectual, politician, or businessman, during student life, one must remain without false prestige as a humble servant of the bona fide spiritual master. The Naistika Brahmachari. Naistiki Brahmachari, who never marries, is described as in the following verse. If the Brahmachari student desires to ascend to the Muharloka or Brahmaloka planets, then he should completely surrender his activities to the spiritual master and observing the powerful vow of perpetual celibacy, dedicate himself to superior Vedic studies. One who desires the supreme perfection of life must engage his body, mind, and words in the service of bona fide spiritual master. He has to surrender to his own guru. One desiring elevation to superior planets such as Brahmaloka or Muharloka must fully engage in the spiritual master's service. We can thus imagine the sincerity of purpose and service required to achieve the Krishnaloka planet, which lies far beyond the material universe. Thus, enlightened in Vedic knowledge by service to the spiritual master, freed from all sins and duality, one should worship me as the super soul, as appear within fire, the spiritual master, one's own self, and living entities. Those who are not married, sannyasis, vanaprasthas, and brahmacharis should never associate with women of glancing, touching, conversing, joking, or sporting. Neither should they ever associate with any living entity engaged in sexual activities. My dear Uddhava, general cleanliness, washing the hands, bathing, performing religious services at sunrise, noon, and sunset, worshipping me, visiting holy places, chanting japa, avoiding that which is untouchable, uneatable, or not to be discussed, and remembering my existence within all living entities as the super soul. These principles should be followed by all members of the society through regulation of the mind, words, and body. A Brahmana observing the great vow of celibacy becomes brilliant like fire and by serious austerity burns to ashes the propensity to perform material activities. Free from contamination or material desire, he becomes my devotee. A Brahmana who has completed his Vedic education and desires to enter the household life should offer proper remuneration to the spiritual master, bathe, cut his hair, put on proper clothes, and so on. Then, taking permission from the Guru, he should go back to his home. The verse describes the process called samvartana. Samvartana, or returning to one's home after finishing Vedic education in the ashrama of the spiritual master. One who cannot concentrate all of his desires in the devotional service of the Lord is attracted to householder life. And if this attraction is not regulated, one will fall down, being covered by the ignorance of fruitive activities and mental speculation. A living entity seeks enjoyment outside the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Lord Krishna and becomes non-devotee. One who takes the family life must rigidly follow the Vedic rules and regulations in order to avoid the collapse of his spiritual determination. One who enjoys the intimate sense gratification with women must become duplicitous in his dealings with others. and consequently falls down from the platform of simple pure life. When the mind is disturbed by lust, one begins to resent the principle of submission to the Supreme Person of Godhead and his pure devotee, and the dark clouds of one's offensive mentality completely cover the light of spiritual knowledge. One should do tell his propensity to love someone by serving the lotus feet of a pure devotee. As stated in Vedic literature, one who worships Govinda, Lord Krishna, but does not worship his devotees is not to be considered an advanced Vaishnava. According to our Vedic literature, one who worships Govinda, Lord Krishna, but does not worship his devotees is not to be considered an advanced Vaishnava. Neither is to be considered a proud hypocrite. Vaishnava, rather, he is to be considered a proud hypocrite. A brahmachari desiring to fulfill his material desires should live at home with his family, and a householder who is eager to purify his consciousness should enter the forest, whereas purified Brahmana should accept the renounced order of life. One who is not surrendered to me should move progressively from the one ashrama to another, never acting otherwise. Those who are not surrendered devotees to Lord Krishna must rigidly observe the regulations governed one's authorized social status. There are 4 social divisions of life, namely Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyasa. One who wants to fulfill material desires should become an ordinary householder, that is Grihastha. Establish a comfortable residence and maintain his family. One desiring to accelerate the process of purification may give up his home and business and live in a sacred place with his wife, as indicated here by the word vanam, or forest. There are many sacred forests in India meant for this purpose, such as Vrindavana and Mayapur. The word Dvijottama indicates the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vysyas are all Dvija, are initiated in the Gayatri Mantra, but the Brahmana is Dvijottama, or the highest among those who have received second birth of spiritual initiation. It is recommended that a purified Brahmana take to the renounced order of life, sannyasa, giving up further contact with his so-called wife. Giving up further contact. It is recommended that a purified Brahmana take to the renounced order of life, sannyasa, giving up further contact with his so-called wife. The Brahmana is specifically mentioned here, since Kshatriya and Vysyas are not to take the renounced order of life. Even so, there are many stories in the Bhagavatam wherein great kings retire with their aristocrat wives to the forest to practice the austerities of Vanaprastha and thus accelerate the process of purification. The Brahmanas, however, may directly accept the renounced order of life. The words ashramam, gachan indicate that one may progressively move from brahmachari life to grihastha life to vanaprastha life and then to sannyasa life. The word ashramam emphasizes that one should never remain without an authorized social status, nor should one go to backward falling down from a higher position. Those who are not surrendered devotees of the Lord Krishna must rigidly observe such injunctions, for otherwise they will quickly become degraded and their sins will place them outside the bounds of authorized human civilization. Lord Krishna emphasizes here that a non-devotee must rigidly observe the rituals and regulations of Vedic social divisions, whereas the Lord's pure devotee, engaged 24 hours a day in Lord Krishna's mission, is transcendental to such divisions. If, however, one performs illicit activities on the strength of being transcendental to Vedic social divisions, one is revealed to be materialistic neophyte and not an advanced devotee of the Lord. An advanced devotee who remains aloof from material sense gratification is not bound by the Vedic social divisions. An advanced devotee who remains aloof from the material sense of gratification is not bound by the Vedic social divisions. Thus, even a householder may live very austerely, traveling and preaching Krishna consciousness away from the home, and even a sannyasi may sometimes engage human in the devotional service of the Lord Krishna. The most advanced devotee cannot be restricted by the rituals and regulations of Varnashrama system, and they move freely around the world distributing love of Godhead. Matpara indicates a pure devotee of the Lord who always keeps the Lord fixed in his heart and consciousness. One who falls down to become a victim of sense gratification is not fully established on the platform of Matpara and should rigidly observe the social divisions and regulations to remain steady on the platform of pious human life. One who desires to establish a family life should marry a wife of his own caste who is beyond reproach and anger in age. If one desires to accept many wives, we must marry them after the first marriage, and each wife should be of a successfully lower caste. Purport. The purport of this verse is that one's first wife must always be Sadashrim or similar to oneself. In other words, an intellectual man should marry an intellectual wife. A heroic man should marry a heroic wife. A business-minded man should marry a woman who can encourage him in such activities. And a Shudra should marry a less intelligent woman. The wife must be beyond reproach in terms of her background and character, should always be younger than himself, ideally 5 to 10 years younger. If one desires to marry a second wife, then as stated in this verse by the word varna anu purvena, and in the verse spoken by Lord Krishna by the word anukramat, one must wait until the first marriage is established and then select a second wife from the next lower caste. If one marries a third time, the wife must be again from the next lower caste. For example, Brahmana's first wife will be Brahmani, and his second wife will be from Kshatriya community, his third wife from the Vaishya community, fourth wife could be Shudra community. A Kshatriya may first marry a Kshatriya lady, then Vaishya and Shudra lady if necessary. A Vaishya can accept wives from two classes, and a Shudra will accept a wife only from the Shudra class. By this progression of marriages, there will be relative peace in the family. This Vedic marriages injunctions, as mentioned in the previous verse, are specifically for those who are not pure devotee of the Lord. Although Bhagavata says that second wife, third wife, and all these things, it is better to have only one wife in the life and surrender to devotee Lord Krishna with your wife is better. As all twice-born men, Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas must perform sacrifice, study the Vedic literature, and give charity. Only the Brahmanas, however, accept charity, teach the Vedic knowledge, and perform sacrifice on behalf of others. All civilized men must participate in sacrificial performances and give charity and study the Vedic literature. The best of the twice-born, namely the Brahmanas, are specifically empowered to lead sacrificial performance on behalf of all members of society, teach everyone Vedic knowledge, and receive everyone's charity. Without the assistance or participation of qualified Brahmanas, the lower classes cannot properly study the Vedic literature, perform sacrifices, or give in charity because they do not have the required intelligence to perfectly execute such functions. When Kshatriyas and Vaishyas take shelter of bona fide Brahmanas, they are able to properly execute their respective duties. And society functions smoothly and efficiently. A Brahmana who considers that accepting charity from others will destroy his austerity, spiritual influence, and fame should maintain himself by the other two Brahmanical occupations, namely teaching Vedic knowledge and performing sacrifice. If the Brahmana consider that these two occupations also compromise his spiritual position, then he should collect rejected grains in the agricultural fields and live without any dependence on others. A pure devotee of the Lord should always remember that the Supreme Personality of Godhead will personally take care of him, as the Lord states in Bhagavad Gita. But those who worship me with devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, to them I carry what they lack and preserve what they have. I carry what they lack and I preserve what they have. A Brahmana should not become a professional beggar for his personal maintenance. In India, there are many so-called Brahmanas who sit at the gates of important temples and beg from everyone who comes and goes. If someone does not give donation, they become angry and chase the person. Similarly, in America, there are many big preachers who collect huge amounts of money by begging on televisions and radio. If a Brahmana or a Vaishnava consider that being professional beggar is weakening his austerity, destroying his spiritual influence, giving him a bad reputation, then he should give up that process. One may beg everyone to contribute to the cause of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but one will be diminished in austerity, influence, and reputation by begging for one's personal livelihood. A Brahmanas may then take up the task of teaching Vedic knowledge and performing sacrifice. But even such occupations do not bring one to the highest platform of trust in God. A Brahmana who teaches as a means of livelihood may often be cured in his teaching, and one who performs sacrifice may be manipulated by materialistic worshippers. In this way, Brahmana may be placed in an embarrassing and compromised position. Therefore, a high-class Brahmin or Vaishnava ultimately will depend completely on the light of their Lord for his maintenance. Therefore, high-class Brahmana or Vaishnava ultimately will depend completely on the mercy of the Lord for his maintenance. The Lord promises to maintain his devotee, and an advanced Vaishnava never doubts the word of the Lord. The body of Brahmana is not intended to enjoy insignificant material sense gratification. Rather, by accepting difficult austerities in his life, a Brahmana will enjoy unlimited happiness after the death. A Brahmana householder should remain satisfied in mind by gleaning rejected grains from agriculture fields and marketplaces, keeping himself free of personal desire. He should practice magnanimous religious principles with consciousness absorbed in me. In this way, a Brahmana may stay at home as a householder without very much attachment and thus achieve liberation. Just as a ship rescues those who have fallen into the ocean, similarly, I very quickly rescue from all calamities those persons who uplift Brahmanas and devotees suffering in a poverty-stricken condition. The Lord has described how Brahmanas and devotees achieve the perfection of life. And now a similar perfection is offered to those who utilize their materialistic wealth to relieve the poverty-stricken condition of devotees and Brahmanas. Although one may neglect the devotional service to the Lord to purify, although one may neglect the devotional service of the Lord to pursue materialistic life of sense gratification, one can rectify one's position by dedicating one's hard-earned money to the service of the Lord. Seeing the difficult austerities accepted by saintly persons, pious person should make arrangements for their comfort, just as a boat saves hopeless people who have fallen into the ocean. Similarly, the Lord uplifts persons who have hopelessly fallen into the motion of material attachment, if they have the charitable and to the Brahmanas and devotees. Just as the chief bull elephant protects all other elephants in his herd and defends himself as well, similarly, a fearless king, just like a father, must give all the citizens from the difficulty and all protect himself. Lord Krishna, having conducted his discussion of Brahmanical duties of Brahmana, now describes the character of and activities of the king, protecting all of the citizens from difficulty in the essential duties of the king. An earthly king who protects himself and all citizens by removing all sins from his kingdom will certainly enjoy the Lord Indra in aeroplanes as brilliant as the sun. If a Brahmana cannot support himself through his regular duties and is thus suffering, he may adopt the occupation of a merchant and overcome his destitute condition by buying and selling material things. If he continues to suffer extreme poverty even as a merchant, then he may adopt the occupation of a Kshathriya, taking sword in the hand, but he cannot in any circumstance become like a dog accepting ordinary weapon. A king or the member of the royal order who cannot maintain himself by his normal occupation may act as a Vaishya, may live by hunting, may act as a Brahmana by teaching others Vedic knowledge, but he may not under any circumstance adopt the profession of Shudra. A Vaishya or a mercantile man who cannot maintain himself may adopt the occupation of a Shudra, and a Shudra who cannot find master can engage in simple activities like making baskets and mats of straw. However, all members of society who have adopted inferior occupations in emergency situation must give up those substitute occupations when the difficulty have passed. One in the Grihastha order of life should daily worship the sages by Vedic study, the forefathers by offering the mantras swada, the gods by chanting swaha, all living entities by offering shares of one's meals, and human beings by offering grains and water. Thus, considering the gods, sages, forefathers, living entities, and human beings to be manifestations of my potency, one should daily perform these 5 sacrifices. The Lord again discusses the duties of those in the household order in the life. Obviously, the 5 ritualistic daily sacrifices mentioned here are meant for those who are not pure devotees of the Lord and who thus have to counteract their exploitation of material nature by the above mentioned sacrifices. The International Krishna Society of Krishna Consciousness ISKCON is training householders, sannyasis, brahmacharis, and vanaprasthas to engage 24 hours a day in the loving service of Lord Krishna. Those who are full-time missionary workers in ISKCON have no further obligations or sacrifices to perform, as confirmed in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. A householder, his grihastha, should comfortably maintain his dependents either with money that comes of its own accord or with the gathered by honest execution of his own duties. According to one's means, one should perform sacrifices and other religious ceremonies. The Lord here describes the religious duties that are to be performed as far as possible according to one's means and when there is opportunity. A householder taking care of many dependent family members should not become materially attached to them, nor should become mentally unbalanced. Considering himself to be the Lord, an intelligent householder should see that all possible future happiness, just like that which he has already experienced, as a temporary. A family man often acts like a lord, protecting his wife, ordering his children, maintaining servants, grandchildren, domestic animals, and so forth. The word na pramatyate kutumbi api indicates that although one acts like a little lord, surrounded by his family, servants and small servants. Servants and friends, one should not, through the false pride, become mentally unbalanced, considering oneself to be the actual Lord. The word vipaschit indicates that one should remain sober and intelligent, never forgetting oneself to be the eternal servant of the Supreme Lord Krishna. Householders of the upper, middle, and lower classes become attached to different types of sense gratification in any economic or social class. However, one should remember that all material enjoyment, either here or in the next life, is temporary and ultimately useless. A responsible householder should guide his family members and other dependents back home, back to Godhead, for an eternal life of bliss and knowledge. One should not become a false and a puffed up lord for a brief span of time, for then one will remain bound up along with his family members in the cycle of repeated birth and death. One should not become a false and puffed up lord for a brief span of time, for then one will remain bound up along with his family members in the cycle of repeated birth and death. The association of children, wife, relatives, and friends is just like the brief meeting of travelers in a journey. With each change of body, one is separated from all such associates, just as one loses the objects one possesses in a dream when the dream is over. Pantasangam indicates the momentary association of travelers at hotels, restaurants, tourist spots, or in the journey, or in the holiday time, or in more traditional cultures, freshwater wells and walking spots. We are now associated with many relatives, friends, and well-wishers, but as soon as we change our material body, we will immediately be separated from all these associates, just as upon awakening, we are immediately separated from the imaginary situation like a dream. One becomes attached to sense gratification of one's dream, and similarly, under the spell of illusory concepts of I and mine, we become attached to so-called relatives and friends who gratify our sense of false ego. Unfortunately, such a feeling, egoistic association covers our real knowledge of the self and the supreme, and we remain hovering in material illusion, futilely enduring for permanent sense gratification. One who remains attached to the bodily concept of family and friends cannot possibly give up the false egoism, I and mine, or I am everything and everything is mine. Deeply considering the actual situation, a liberated soul should live at home, just like a guest. Deeply considering the actual situation, a liberated soul should live at home, just like a guest, without any sense of proprietorship of false ego. In this way, he will not be bound to or entangled by domestic affairs. The word mukta or liberated refers to one freed from all material attachment. In this status called mukta sangha, one no longer identifies oneself as a permanent resident of the material world. This liberated status may be attained even by one situated in family life. The only requirement is that one should take up a serious program of Krishna Sankirtana, which includes constant chanting of the holy names of Lord, worship for the deity, and participation in the Krishna conscious movement. Without a serious program of Krishna Sankirtanam, it is very difficult to give up the iron shackles of attachment to woman and the hip byproducts of such attachment. A householder devotee who worships me by execution of his family duties may remain at home, go to holy place, or if he has responsible son, take sannyasa. This verse describes the three alternatives for a householder. He may continue at home, or he may take vanaprastha, which involves going to a sacred place with one's wife. Or if he has a responsible son to take over his family duties, he may take sannyasa, the renounced order, for a definitive solution of the problems of life. In all the three ashramas, ultimate success depends on sincere surrender to the Lord, Supreme Lord, Krishna. Therefore, the most important qualification one can have is Krishna consciousness. But a householder, that's Grihastha, whose mind is attached to his home and who is thus disturbed by ardent desires to enjoy his money and children, who is lusty after a woman, who is possessed of a miserly mentality, and who unintelligently thinks everything is mine and I am everything, is certainly bound an illusion. If a Grihastha whose mind is attached to his home and who is thus disturbed by ardent desires to enjoy his money and children, who is lusty after a woman, who is possessed by a miserly mentality, and who unintelligently thinks everything is mine and I am everything, is certainly bound an illusion. Oh my poor elderly parents, and my wife with a mere infant in her arms, and my other children, without me, they have absolutely no one to protect them and will suffer unbearably. How can my poor relatives possibly live without me? Thus, because of his foolish mentality, a householder whose heart is overwhelmed by family attachment is never satisfied. Constantly meditating on his relatives, he dies and enters into the darkness of ignorance again. Andam Vishate Tamaha indicates that in his next life, an attached householder will certainly be degraded because of his primitive mentality of bodily attachment, which is called Muda Di. In other words, after enjoying the sense gratification, considering oneself the center of everything, one enters into lower species of life. Somehow or other, we must fix our minds on Lord Krishna and come out of the darkness of ignorance to our real life in Krishna consciousness. Thus end the purports of the 11th canto, 17th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, called Lord Krishna's description of Varnashrama system. Varnashrama system is different. Varnashrama dharma is slightly different. The next chapter is Varnashrama dharma, what has to be done in each. Namostu anantaya sahasramurtaye sahasrapadakshara sasanamne purushashudaya sahasrakoti yugadarane namaha sahasrakoti yugadarane namaha akashat paritam metagat sagaram sarvadeva namaskaraha srikesham pragatyo namaha sarva vedeshat punyam sarva tirteshu yatpalam tatpalam pranapta vasanat vasudevasya vashtante jagatrayam sarvabhuta nivasoste vasenuste kayen vacha mansendreva buddhyatmana va gurude sabhavat karomi adyat sagalam parasmai Narayana yeti samarpayami Narayana yeti. Hari Om Tat Sat.